forget because it was so good, and even from the point of view of the way the show was made and the experience that the people had on the set, it's like nothing that the actors that worked on that show will ever experience again. You know, it was an incredible closeness and a sense of family, and very unbusinesslike. You know what I mean? It was they were doing something great and they knew it and they loved what they were doing. And, my friend just came back today, actually, from directing the current episode along TJ Scott is a great director who does a lot of different stuff, but he did Spartacus and he's doing Orphan Black at the moment as well. And they actually got him to do a few episodes along mine, which is pretty cool. And TJ's awesome. He's a great guy and an incredible photographer too. You know, he's a director, but amazing visual guy. So it's always good fun when I catch up with him. Hopefully, be seeing him tonight. Actually, I'm a really big anti-spoiler guy. You know, so I really hate. You know, when I even sense that somebody is making a film that I'm going to like to see at the cinema, I actually just stop watching trailers and advertising. I love going into the cinema having absolutely no idea what it's about. All I know is a director that I love is doing it and actors that I love are in it, and that's it. So it's always a great surprise, you know. But it's like when Game of Thrones is on and things like that, you have to basically shut off your Facebook and your Twitter because people just ruin everything. Just as a technical person, it's always great having a friend like that that's a director because you kind of can learn a lot about the way the shows are made and what they do and all that sort of thing. So it's pretty cool. But TJ's great. Michael Reimer is another good friend of mine who obviously you know he was the guy that kind of started Battlestar with Ryan Moore. You know, he was the Australian director that did the first episode and then all the big ones after that, and then wrote a lot of them. He'd been working on the show for a good, all of it basically, and it was coming towards the end of season 4, and he invited me out on set, and they were filming Daybreak, the very last episodes, and I was actually just a visitor, but then I met Eddie on set. Eddie actually asked me to do some photographs, and after that I was just shooting every day for like 4 or 5 weeks. It was an odd, it wasn't something I was specifically hired to go and do. It was just an odd sort of series of events where I met Eddie and we just got along really well. And Eddie is just a great guy, and he was the one that was instrumental in saying, somebody has to document the end of this show because nobody's doing it. And that job was given to me, so I took, over that period of time, took thousands of photos and videos and made that sort of rap video party rap video that you see on the Vimeo channel. And that's what it was. So that's how that all happened. It was just a little sort of coincidence, and then, once I started meeting the actors and doing photo shoots with them, it just, I do a shoot with, James Callis, and then, James would show it to Jamie, or the other way around, I think it was, and then, they want to do a shoot, and then, it just all went from there, and that's how the whole sci-fi thing started, photographing sci-fi actors in general, it all stemmed from those first days in Battlestar Galactica. It was just one of those things, that started randomly. I was working a normal job like anybody else, working in retail and actually selling cameras at a big electronics store. And one day I just decided to buy one of the cameras I was selling and have a play with it. And that was only a little bit over 10 years ago. It wasn't that recently. Wasn't that long ago, I should say. So, and then from there, I just started doing photo shoots of bands and things like that. The next thing I know, I was photographing for Harry Potter, and then a few years later on the set of Battlestar, and then meeting all these amazing people that came from that. Like that, now all these people that I know element to the Battlestar experience, but it's an extension of that because you
Yeah.
meet somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And, yeah, absolutely, and it's infinite, and it's so small too. Like it's such a small world. You just you run into somebody that that knows somebody else that you've just met, and it's just I'm always surprised at how you go to a party and there'll be somebody there that is totally not supposed to be there. And you haven't seen them for years or something like that. It's amazing. I love LA for that reason. It's very cool. Yeah, I still don't think I have a knack for it. It's something that happened even without me realizing eventually that you start taking photographs of everything as an amateur photographer, and when you buy a camera and you're just taking snaps of landscapes and your friends' rock and roll bands and pubs and your dog and your cat, so you photograph everything, and eventually, without really realizing it, you've gravitated to something, and you realize you're enjoying something more than something else, and before long, before I knew it, I was just taking pictures of actors, or people, I should say, just beautiful portraits. I just got enamored with people's faces and their eyes, more than anything. I do love photographing live bands. They're my two passions, is doing a bit of rock and roll photography and just photographing people intimately. Like just not too much static around me with assistants and things like that, but just having myself and that person there and just getting to know and connecting with them and photographing them. It's what I love doing. So, I think one thing that inspires me in general all the time, no matter what I'm doing, is music. And I use music to get me in the mood for certain things. And I don't have a specific muse as in a person or anything like that, but I do have photographers that I love, and I always look at their work, and I have books of their work, and it's one of those things that everything in this world creative is kind of derivative of something else, and
True.
we can never exactly copy the great people that do the stuff that we love, whether it's music or photography or filmmaking, but we're inspired by them when we do something similar to them, but then we infect that process with ourselves, and it becomes uniquely our style of work, so it's just one of those things. I love all photography, and I love all music, and I think there's a place for any type of music in your life, whether it's classical or rock and roll or metal or whatever. You always find a mood that you're into listening to it, and I love having music when I'm shooting, and I love having music when I'm working, when I'm photoshopping. Yeah, it's I have photographers, and I've just moved into this place, so there's not a lot here at the moment. But I usually have my walls I tear magazines and stick things to the wall, and I'm just surrounded by work. So even if you're not physically looking at that picture on the wall, it's always bombarding you, so you're surrounded with that creativity all the time. I have favourites. Anton Corbijn is probably my favourite photographer, who is primarily a music photographer. He photographed U2 for many years, and he directed one of my favourite films as well, The American, with George Clooney. And he's a photographer. An odd thing, for a rock and roll photographer to direct as well, but as a photographer, directing a film, the film was visually stunning and a great movie. And so Anton Corbijn and Annie Leibovitz, Mario Testino, all these sort of great photographers are my inspiration. But then there's a lot of young people that are unknowns who do beautiful work that I love to see too. And you see that it's great to be able to be on Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and all that sort of stuff, and you see work that you respect from your friends and kids, that you're actually inspiring them, and they're doing work that you respect, which is a great thing. So I love that too. it's always interesting. I think when I know, and when I have my friend Ken with me working, and he's helping design some of the shoots and things like that. I don't notice it, but he tells me again. He tells me when he sees me work that I have a reaction to something I'll say or do or whatever while I'm shooting. And I think when you've got the shot, when you've done the shot, you capture that moment and you see it, and then you go looking for that shot through the hundreds of shots later. But then there'll be standout things that you get accidentally or whatever that are out of focus and they've got movement in them, and they're just fantastic. There's one of Dan Fury who he was we were doing photo shoots and he was spinning around there stopping for me, and one of my favourite shots is actually when he's I'm actually shooting before he gets to that point, and it's actually at the back of him, and so you just find these great little shots that aren't anything that you can use in particular, but they're just great editorial shots that you love, and they're the ones that putting the shot of the back of somebody's head on your websites. There are shots that you always find that you weren't aware of while you're shooting, but there's always that one shot that you got when you got it. So it's quite easy. Very rarely do I actually get through all the shots that I've taken on a shoot. I'm sure there's still hundreds and thousands of hidden gems in there, because I find that one shot and I fixate on it, and that's kind of like the thing, and then I have to go on to the next thing, so one day I'll sit down and be able to go through all the photographs and find some nice things in there that I've never seen before. The time to put the Battlestar book together, the last days, which I think, I don't know whether you saw on my actual website, dennys.com, I did a little bit of a blog about that. And we've got the book, 90% designed. It's just now a matter of calibrating the images and making them all good, and writing the text for the book. I need an editor to write the text in there, and then there'll be a beautiful final days of Battlestar Galactica book. I'll send you a special autographed edition. It's one of those things, I always sort of tell people, it's our responsibility to somehow try to figure out a way of making a living doing what we love doing most, because there's nothing worse than hating 30% of your day, 30 or 40% of your day, every day of your life, doing a job you hate. I mean, what could be worse? What could be more hell-like than that?
Exactly.
And I spend time doing that, we all do. And we have to, we have to pay bills, we have to do this, we have to do that. And for me, this is the big thing too, is I guess the big lesson that I try to impart on people is that it's never ever too late. So I went from job to job all my life, trying to do things that I thought my parents would want me to do, and then trying to, do jobs that I knew that I didn't like, but and doing jobs that I didn't like, and making a lot of money and having cars and things and houses and but always miserable, absolutely miserable, so it wasn't until my 40s that I bought one of the first Canon digital SLRs, I think it was 2002, and then just started again. Left my job and did photo shoots while I had my job, but then finally left my job and have been working and building up that brand of Dennys photography ever since. And it's one of those things, you have the years where you make money and years where you don't, and it's very cyclic. But I wouldn't change a day of it. It's amazing, because everything that's beautiful and amazing that's happening in my life is from the people that I'm meeting. Everything that is good that will help you facilitate you moving forward with your dreams comes from good people. So for me, I spent if this is my entire life, I've spent this part, up till now, has been like this intense. I've met more incredible people and had more beautiful experiences here than this whole other section, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that is worth everything else a million times over for me. I think it's just, within common sense, you've got to pursue what you want to do. And the great thing about photography is, what I tell a lot of, especially the, women, young women are just so creative and have such a great ability to do and learn very quickly, and it's just one of those things they can do whatever they're doing in their job or whatever they're studying in school and do photography. The great thing about photography, it's not like if you want to be a rock star that you have to, leave everything and go on the road and everything. You can study, you can work as an accountant, whatever, and pursue this passion until you get to where you want to be. So it's and then on top of everything else, I started when I was in my 40s. Imagine, I keep telling you this is something I repeat myself all the time. Is if you're 17, 18, 19, 20, 25, and you focus on this with all your passion and love that you can, imagine what you'll be by the time you're 40.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of really being committed to it if that's what you want. So, and there's a couple of people I know that I've met through the fandom that are really, I'm just really so happy they're just giving it everything they can, but still maintaining, a normal life. But I can see the work evolving, and it's great. So, yeah, it is kind of a very late sort of dream come true for me. Star Trek when I was a kid, and we're going back now when it was, you wouldn't tell people that you love that stuff because it was odd, now we're kind of in the majority, and I was that kid at school, and I got bullied, and I was a nerd and a geek and all that sort of stuff, and now we're the ones that are, look at the biggest shows on the planet now, TV shows, Big Bang Theory, Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, the biggest movies are the Star Trek movies, and Star Wars. So it's
Marvel.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. Comic books, man. People, even, I collected comics until even into my 30s, and most of my friends would think, you're just a kid and an idiot for reading this stupid stuff. They had no concept of what, graphic novels like The Watchmen and V for Vendetta were like, and now it's all mainstream. The special photographer, it's just, as a photographer, it's when you're kind of doing specialist work that isn't part of the normal thing that happens on a film set. So you have somebody that's doing unit stills, or you might have a photographer that comes in specifically to do work for the posters and the artwork and things like that. But your unit stills photographer can sometimes do both, where they're the documentary photographer on the show or the film set. Specialist photography is when you come and have to do something that's a little bit out of the norm for their publicity or for their advertising or for their artwork. For the Harry Potter films, for example, it was one of those things where they had, I think, like one of the great photographers, Frank Oakenfeld III, great Hollywood photographer, doing all the poster artwork, and then they had whatever the unit stills photographer was doing on the film sets. My work on those films in particular was to do the wide-ranging international publicity photographs for Daniel Radcliffe. So, if Daniel Radcliffe is going to be in Vanity Fair, they will make the time for him to be photographed by any Leibowitz for Vanity Fair. But there's 1,000 other magazines around the world that want exclusive photographs for the covers and stuff like that, and he can't do them all,
Yeah, right.
So my specialist thing, for example, in that thing was to have him for 8 to 10 hours, and I would do dozens and dozens of different looks and feels and photo shoots that each that looked like they were in a different place. And then those photographs are used by the film distributor to distribute to different magazines. So, Studio magazine in France will get this one, GQ magazine will get that one. That's kind of like a specialist sort of thing. And so that's kind of what a special photographer, or what that category falls to. A DP or a director of photography is a completely different thing. That's that involves cinematography. photography and moving pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when you're actually the person either controlling the camera operator that shoots the movie or the TV show, or you are the camera operator and the shooter. So a director of photography or a cinematographer generally is a person that designs the lighting and sets a shot up, and then there'll be a camera operator that does all the camera work. In my cases, I was kind of like did both, you know. So my two main things that I did, I only did it for a little while. I found it a little bit too, you know, I'm quite a private sort of person, you know, and follow that whole geek thing, you know. It's kind of, you grow up sort of being on your own, all that sort of thing. So as much as I enjoyed it, the attention and the focus on you by hundreds of people when you're a DP or a cinematographer isn't something that I enjoyed, you know. So I'm like, take my camera, go out with an actor, maybe somebody to help me, an assistant, and enjoy myself very quietly and personally connecting with that person. When you're on a film set, there's, you know, 200 people staring at you, waiting for you to get your shit together, you know, and I just didn't enjoy it, you know. So I shot a film in Bollywood, in India, you know, quite a big feature, and then the next thing I did was, you know, which is kind of like, to me, it was kind of the bookend, you know, like, okay, I've shot a film for Michael Reimer, you know, the director, producer of Battlestar Galactica and Angel Baby, and now he's on Hannibal and all this sort of stuff, and it's like, I don't need to do anything else. You know what I mean? For me, as a fanboy, like, there's nothing more. You know, I was a big fan of Michael Reimer's long before I met him. You know, he did an incredible film called Angel Baby, which won so many awards, and it was a beautiful, tragic film. And it was his breakout movie from Australia. And he, you know, I was just a geek fan of Michael Reimer as a filmmaker. But then when I found out he was doing Battlestar, it was just, you know, all these weird things to collude for me to become friends with this person who was doing, redoing a show that I loved as a kid, the original series, but also being written and produced and directed by somebody else I loved, Ron D. Moore, who was, you know, doing all the Star Treks, you know, and stuff like that. So for all it to come together for me to shoot a film for Michael, that, mind you, that film went on to win, you know, 40 international awards or more, you know, and you know, Michael Moore, you know, from Bowling from Colbine, said it was one of the most important films of 2011, all this sort of stuff. So it's kind of like, that's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
I actually, you know, you should always really shoot in RAW when you photograph, if you can, unless, you know, you need to supply things on the day. But yeah, I'm a big fan of post-production tweaking. It's something I do. I always, I have no issue with it. Some people make a big sort of thing about the artistic integrity of photoshopping images and so forth. I think that's just crap. You know, we can do that now. We don't have to, you know, we don't shoot on film where it's impossible to do that like it was in days past. And to me, the most absolute important thing is to make the people I photograph look in a way that they're at their best and that they're different. You know, try to represent my subjects in a way that then people aren't used to seeing them. You know, I'll look at an actor and say, well, everybody sees you like this. Nobody's seen you in these sort of clothes looking like this. You know, so let's do something completely different and then show the world that you're multispectral, you know, and that's what I love doing. So, and nothing's ever perfect, you know. I'm sort of so into the moment of shooting that I'm like a horse with blinders, you know, and my peripheral vision is completely gone. And it's when I get back into the computer, I see there are cans of Coke sitting in the background and, you know, all this, you know, there's garbage on the thing, and I count on Photoshop to remove the things that I missed on the day. You know, I don't alter. You know, I'm not a big fan of, you know, doing that whole thing that magazine covers where people have literally no features left whatsoever because they've been so highly Photoshop. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about color grading that creates an atmosphere and a focus on the subject and just, you know, repair, you know, fixing those bits of garbage that were in the background that I didn't see when I was actually doing the shoot. So yeah, Photoshop and Lightroom, two Adobe programs. think A, you should pay for it, and B, you should share that knowledge. It's like, you know, going back years, people wouldn't tell you what they use because they didn't want you to be able to do the same good work as them. You know, if people want to know what I use to do my work, I'll tell them, and they can come here and watch over my shoulder and watch me do it. Because like I said, everybody does derivative stuff, and if I can inspire people and they want to copy what I do, then I'm happy to do it. You know, because the best thing you can do is help people achieve that. You know, doing what you're doing is one of the best things you can do, and then helping other people do what they want to do is the next best thing. You know, so I got to write that other one down that you said too. You either love Battlestar Galactica or you haven't seen it. That's great. I'm going to tweet that now. Yeah, I had access to everything. It was a closed set generally because it was the final episode. Daybreak was, you know, the end, and it was a very secretive set because, you know, they were revealing who the Cylons were and those things where I actually really wasn't actually supposed to be there. A lot of the usual, you know, documentary crews weren't allowed to be there, and because of the fact that this show was so special, you know, my presence there was greenlit. Really, like Michael and his wife Loretta invited me to come on set. They're the ones that brought me on set, and they paved the way, you know, for that to happen. But then that was then amplified by Edward Elmos, you know, who again, it was like that being face to face with Eddie for the first time, you know, being a huge. I mean, you know, for me, there is Blade Runner, and then there are no other films. You look at what he brought to that film on so many levels. It was just amazing. I mean, his character was fleeting, but every time he was on the screen, it was just it was great and it was intense. And I loved him, and I loved everything he stood for, and everything that he's done. I mean, if you look into his history and what he did during the LA riots and all this sort of stuff, it was just an amazing human being. So for me to be in his presence was just like, you know, it was just that typical moment where your voice cracks, and it was just awe-inspiring. So, and he took to me, and he was the one that basically told everybody, nobody messes with Dennis. He gets to do what he wants to do. And then that was again seconded by a beautiful man, Harvey Frank, who was the showrunner, I think you call him, and you know, one of the executive producers on the show, who has since died. He was a very, very sweet human being, and he was also one who just, you know, cut interference, you know, from the studios to let me do what I had to do. So, and at the end of the day, all that stuff that I got, there are pictures that, you know, I posted one a little while ago that you guys retweeted, but there's so many more where, you know, Mary McDonald is doing a death scene, you know, and Eddie's looking at her and he's crying, you know. And then I've got this photo, like you can see the tears in his eyes, and it's real, you know. And then they finish that scene, they cut it, and everybody's bawling, you know. And this is what's happening. Everybody was doing their last scenes, and their characters were either exiting or being killed. And it would have been just a tragedy if nobody was there. So I'm blessed to have been there to actually just have seen it, you know, let alone seen, you know, the end of this iconic, you know, world-changing TV show. Get to be part of that, you know, let alone see it, and then also see it as a geek being on an awesome film set, you know, because those sets were kind of real, you know. It wasn't like the CIC was completely enclosed, you know, and everything worked, you know. It was just so cool. So you'd be walking around the corridors like you're walking around in a starship. It wasn't like, you know, just breakaway, open, you know, quarter sets. So just as a geek, that was just mind-blowing. To meet, to see Michael Reimer actually directing and working and observe that was mind-blowing. To meet the cinematographer, the guy that made this show look the way it looked, Stephen McNutt, is like my hero, my mentor visually. And he's also a very good friend. Steve McNutt is one of the great cinematographers that, you know, the whole world should know a lot more about. You know, he is incredible. He would film that show, you know, most shows are filmed in a way that they just need to go into post, you know, and a lot of stuff has to be done. And to fix them, and they say, okay, we're going to make everything look brown and gritty, and we're going to apply all these filters, and it's going to take 2 months. I'm looking at the screens on set, and it's like I've watched 3.9 seasons of this show, and I'm looking at these monitors, and it looks exactly like what I'm seeing on my DVDs. Like he's lighting it and doing it all real time, where literally nothing gets done to the shaft, and that's like a true artist. So to see him at work was just, to me, was awe-inspiring. And he's a great man, a really good soul too. And then to meet and talk to and be friends with Ron Moore was mind-blowing, and Eddie Almos, and then to have people like, from this, you have people that are your friends like Tamo, and Ryan Robbins is one of my, dearest friends, probably one of the most decent human beings I know, and, it's really bizarre because the opening of that show, he's done up as an element, but then he came, but they loved him so much, he came back to do more episodes as himself, but, it's really funny because I'm on this set, and I don't know anybody, and Ryan Robbins opens that scene, and Tricia Helfer, comes and kisses him and then kills him, and then Ryan ends up being one of my closest friends who I photograph, who is probably, I think if anybody was in news, that he would be. Photographing him is one of my greatest pleasures. And then so to have these people who are like this in the show, at the beginning of the show, and then to photograph and have him as my best friend, and then to photograph Tricia Helfer naked, be kind of like, another tick. So yeah, that was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And then the conspiracy of these events to bring me to this place to do all this stuff again is all because of beautiful people. The beautiful and implicit trust from Tricia Helfer and Katie Sackhoff to do this calendar for them is it's fantastic. And these are busy Hollywood stars, and Tricia's one of the greatest models, and Katie's so busy, and they're just to say, hey, we want you to photograph, and we're going to trust you with this stuff, and it's a beautiful thing. The cliche of LA and Hollywood being a horrible town full of users and abusers is just so far from the truth, because those sort of people are everywhere. No matter what job you are. I've met more users and abusers and horrible people in the retail job that I work than I have in LA. I'm sure they're here, but they're everywhere, and you gravitate to goodness, and that's and you try to spread the goodness, and that's it. It's you have a particular personality type, and I won't say everybody likes me or gets along with me. I can be I'm a little bit I can be quite particular with my attention to detail and things like that, so that can be I think it's my perfectionism over things slows down my progress in work, and that can be a bit annoying for people, and it's one of those things, perfect is the enemy of completely acceptable. A friend of mine keeps telling me, so something that is just mind-bogglingly good by other people's standards, that is just nowhere near good enough for you, is what's always going to hold you back, so but yeah, look, it comes back to the fact that I love people, and I love photographing people, and I think that passion for other human beings is what makes you get along with other human beings, because you're always eternally interested in them, no matter who they are, whether it's somebody who's working here as an actor, and whether it's Tom Cruise or whether it's you, everybody's unique and beautiful in their own way, and I'm curious about that sort of stuff, and I love it, and some of the people who helped me make my greatest strides forward and gave me my breaks are people that I met working in retail. And I see it today where I'll go in and buy something, and there'll be a young person at the counter, and they'll look up and they'll be like, yeah, what do you want? And I was never like that. I was curious about people, and I got to know them, and those people, were the ones that ended up helping me the most, go forward. And I think that's one thing too, is that you should every day, whether you're in a job that sucks, you just got to make the most of it and be curious, and the stuff that you've got around you, whether you're selling mobile phones at a TV mobile shop or records or whatever, working at a magazine stand, all that stuff around you is just peripheral garbage. It's the person who walks through the door that's the important thing.
True.
Always. So yeah. Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of simplicity. I like natural light. Part of the fact that I do what I do with low maintenance sort of shooting and not having lots of lighting and bounce boards and sets and things like that and assistance is to avoid all that is concentrating on finding great locations with great light, great natural light. So that's what I love about LA. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of concrete and there's a lot of bounce, and I can go there with just an assistant or with no assistance, or beautiful windows and window lighting is just one of my favourite things in the world. So there's no technique other than really being chilled and laid back and talking to the person that I'm photographing while we're in conversation, and every now and again they'll do something themselves which is amazing. Like they'll just look over somewhere and be thinking about something, and at that moment will hit me, and that's what I go for. And but it is about I love texture in photographs. I don't like white walls or black walls. I like studio props, but I love texture. So I love finding old gas stations or whatever it may be, decrepit buildings. I have a darker side to me. If you look at my website, there's not too many photographs of people smiling, and that's why I love to photograph actors, because you can tap into that, sort of inner reflectiveness that they have, and they can bring that out for you very easily. And I like rustic, decrepit, depressing locations as well. So, and it's really interesting because when you're photographing somebody like for a corporate shoot, you might sort of try to get this sort of serious banker sort of thing going, and you ask them to look down deep in thought, and it's very sort of like they're just physically looking down and scowling, whereas an actor straight away is bringing all those skills that they have to bring out that sadness or whatever, and the photographs just make you weep, and that's what I love, So there's not many cheesy grins on my website, and I guess like I really love this picture of Dan, but you should do more photographs of him smiling, and it's like, no, I shouldn't. But that's for somebody else to do.
Yeah.
And it's not for me to do. It's not what I do. So and occasionally somebody will have an amazing, beautiful smile that will just lighten me, and I'll do that. I'll do those photographs, but I'm a little bit more about the darker side. It was their idea. I had always wanted to do. I'd photographed Katie and Trisha on separate occasions. Just again, it was just let's go and hang out and do a photo shoot type thing, and photographing them again. Consummate actors and especially models. When I photographed Trisha for the first time in her home, and when you photograph somebody who is not only a wonderful actor, but whose background is in very high level modeling, there's not a single wasted shot. It's kind of like I look at those old photographs that I did of Trisha in that shoot, and it's like she knows, like she has got like this awareness and connection to the camera, and right down to the there's this thing with the shutter, there's this sync with the shutter of the camera. Models, really professional models are like that, and you go through and it's like your biggest problem is which one of these 700 absolutely perfect shots
is more perfect.
Do I pick? Not like, oh well, I found 5 shots where the subject didn't blink and isn't drooling or something. It's like that's the constant problem. It's like, wow, every single shot is fantastic, and that's all her. When you're with somebody like that, you can just give the camera to a monkey and get the monkey to press the trigger. And then I photographed Katie, and Katie was. She was, again, I went to her home and we were walking around the streets, and she was the same too. She had this, she's got this broody, dark edge to her that I just fell in love with, but then when she's laughing, it's just incredible as well. But there's this really deep, soulful aspect of her that was just so beautiful to photograph. And I was always talking with her about doing another shoot with her and doing something a little bit more risque. She wanted to do something with a motorbike and go out and just be wrapped in a sheet or something like that, which was really cool. And we were sort of chatting, and then I was chatting to Trisha about doing a shoot, and then they kind of got together and said, hey, why don't we do a shoot together, and we'll make it about us being best friends and about motorbikes and acting outlaws, and money will be for the charity, and that's how that came about. It was their idea. It was their idea to make it, quite such a beautiful, sexy calendar too. That was pretty terrifying for me because I'm actually not used to shooting nudes at all. Like, it's the first time I really ever did that. But again, having such amazing people on the other end of the camera made it easy. They were just fun the whole day, and I had a good team working with me, and without them I couldn't have done it either. So it was good fun, and we did two different versions of the calendar. The first one was a colour one, and the second one was a black and white version. And that image, that final image of Trisha Helfer and Katie Sackhoff together with their legs interlocked is just, that's kind of the ultimate. Really funny to do a shot like that with their husbands over your shoulder watching you do these photographs. So it was pretty cool fun though. It was 2 days in the California desert with two people that you respect and you admire and you've been watching on television for the last 5-6 years. It's just another one of those dreams come true. There may be, I've kind of, we've gone through and tapped the photographs as best we can from that shoot. I think I could probably pull another calendar out from that shoot, possibly. I'm going to be starting to look at that, but I think if we do one, I'd love to do another photo shoot. And but I just I don't know what else to do with those guys. That would be cool. Snow is a great place to shoot, but it's kind of like from the point of view of doing cool stuff. You've got Trisha floating around naked in a swimming pool. You got Katie walking around naked on abandoned railroad tracks in the middle of the California desert. What else do you do? I'd love to do another calendar with them. It's getting a little bit late in the year now. Like, we'd have to do a shoot like tomorrow and start designing the calendar for next year. But I'll see. Those calendars are always clocking over. They're on Redbubble, so they automatically become next year's calendar. So people who discover them late can always still get them. And it's one of those things that actually with Redbubble in particular, which is kind of why I went for this rather than physically producing our own calendars, is that you can get on there, and if you want to buy one now, you can actually order that calendar. Say that calendar starts from July and goes to June. So they're really odd calendars. They can start from any year. So there's no January picture of Trisha, because that picture can be a February picture or a June picture depending on when you start the calendar. So that's what I love about them. So there is that calendar in particular is on Trisha and Katie's Redbubble account. My Redbubble account has the Amanda Tapping, and it's got the Men of Sci-Fi, all that sort of stuff. So and there's a couple of Battlestar Galactica calendars there, I think, too. Still, I've been there for a while. Wow. All the experiences are so different that it's hard to say this is my favourite. But I think it comes down to the people that I've enjoyed photographing the most. And to me, again, going back to people like Ryan Robbins, I've done probably, I think, 2 or 3 photo shoots with him now, and each time it's been something absolutely, completely different and weird and eclectic. And I'm in the midst of working on a really cool photo shoot with him and Mike Eklund, and it's going to be pretty way out there, and again, another shoot with Ryan is just going to be completely different to everything else. So probably one of my favourite people to shoot, I think, is always him because he gives so much to the shots. Like it's just so 100% there. But I think for me, where it kind of all started in the world of sci-fi was with that time I spent on Battlestar. So doing that is kind of like one of the highlights for me. But on a whole other scale, photographing Daniel Radcliffe, I think is got to be there with the top thing, because not only photographing a young actor who is kind of like the number one actor in his age group in the world, but part of the biggest film franchise in the history of filmmaking. To be part of that is just on a technical level is just mind-boggling. But Daniel himself, like being involved with him in a photo shoot and getting to know him and his family, they and he are everything that is good about Hollywood. Decent, kind, beautiful human beings with extraordinary talent. Daniel's talent and focus on his work is like nothing I've seen before, and you can tell by, his success as a theatre actor now, where he does, he's on his third major Broadway play, and there is never, a negative word about what he does in these shows, never a negative review, not even as a joke. I mean, people are so awestruck by his capabilities that people don't even joke about it being, anything but incredible. I'm going back to New York to see Cripple Diminishment again because it was just such an amazing piece, So I think, that kind of started it all really in the big terms, the legitimacy and credibility you get from working with an actor like that and on a film franchise like that helped everything come along, and it just, it's always added to by the fact that you're dealing with beautiful, down-to-earth, talented people, and he's kind of like the consummate example of the great, sort of humble, amazing, talented Hollywood actor. So there you go. It's kind of like Battlestar and Harry Potter. The first time I photographed him, he was 15 years old. So the first time I met him, he was, I think, 13. And now he's a handsome young man doing amazing work, and picking really cool independent projects, and not going for what I'm sure he'd be getting so many big blockbuster bullshit film scripts sent to him every other day, but he's going for the real left of center stuff, that's really cool. And The Woman in Black was brilliant, him playing Allen Ginsberg was, masterful, and then these plays, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, was just amazing to see in New York, and then Cripple Diminishment and Equus. Everything he's doing is just freaking awesome. His career is something that is always a joy to watch as it moves along, because he's not making the obvious choices, sort of thing. So it's very cool. Not really. There's nothing that I regret using, because I think everything is cool. Like anything that captures an image is going to do a mind-blowing job for you. I guess maybe I wish technology was further when I was working on Battlestar, because those sets were so dark, and like now the cameras are really good at dark, so it's kind of like it was difficult shooting in those low light conditions, and the DSLR cameras didn't have video capabilities, so the video I was shooting was in a little snappy camera, I don't like to say this is the equipment that you should use, because I know this photographer in Germany who her work is mind-boggling and sublime. It is so good that it's on another level. And she was actually my assistant and like co-photographer on some of the stuff I did with Daniel. And she is using she was using like a $500 camera with a shoebox with a pinhole in it if you know what you're doing. And her work was just always jaw-dropping to me. And then I'd look at her cameras and I was like, somebody needs to buy you some decent gear, because it'll take you to a whole other level, but she doesn't need it. She does beautiful, amazing stuff, and is, it's being aware of the equipment and the limitations of equipment and things like that. So, I shoot with Canon, but, a lot of my friends shoot with Nikon. It's whatever works for you, and I'm a big fan of longer lenses that sort of bring in more concentration on the subject and throw the background out of focus. So a lot of my portraits are done with, a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. I don't like super wide sort of stuff, but the Canon 70 to 200 is a great lens. But I'm looking. You kind of get bored with equipment after a while, so I'm kind of looking at changing all that now, just to get a different look and feel, because different cameras process films and process things in different ways, so you get a different look out of it. So I was almost thinking of changing over to Nikon or Leica. I'd really love Leica to give me a monochrome M. That would be nice. It's a bit much to hope for, and I will eventually buy one. But I'm a big fan of the monochrome and stuff that